This is Beyond the Headlines, the learning edition with Dr. Q.
Welcome to the learning edition of Beyond the Headlines with Dr. Q, a space where we unpack ideas shaping our world one conversation at a time. Today we are joined by Mr. Sibusiso Masombuga, who I will be chatting to about all things basic education. My goodness, Mr. Masumbuga, I feel sorry for you because I've got tons of questions for you.
Okay. All right. No, hit me.
Anyway, Mr. Masumbuga, greetings to you. How are you?
I'm good. Can't complain. Yeah. Just
I
in a good
was just giving you a warning earlier and was saying, I hope you're ready for my first question, and it comes now.
Okay.
Are you in a way related to Miss Masumbuga, whom we saw in Sarafina?
Look, I actually like that question. Thank you so much for that. The reason why I love it is because I'm unfortunately not related to her, but here's where the funny story is. Absolutely love activism and obviously educator rights or learner rights or children's rights. So definitely something that mimics her character. I was born in 1992, which is the same year that Sarafina was released. So,
Wow.
and I think for the most of in the last 10 years that I've been teaching, people have really sort of thrown that as a jab. Calling me Mistress Masumbuka and all that stuff. So it's something that I've sort of carried with me. Apart from my secondary identity of calling myself the swaggy school teacher, people who really, really know me and are very close to me always throwing that jab of calling me Mistress Masumbuka, and I've had to own it.
Oh my God, not Mistress Masumbuga, please. An entire
Yeah.
deputy principal being called a mistress?
Yeah.
Who are these people? Nobody love a bantu. Sibusiso, this is an official welcome to the podcast now. But before I get to the meat of things, I want you to assist me. Could you kindly paint a picture for us on how your average school day looks like as a deputy principal? Because I think you are a deputy principal. I hope I didn't get that incorrectly.
Yeah.
And what are some of the moments that energize you and keep you up at night?
Okay. All right. So my day starts every day at 4 a.m. in the morning. So I am quite a bit of an early bird. And I'll tell you, there's method in my madness. One of the reasons why I do it. So I get up at 4. I don't like waking up early. So that's the first hardest challenge. And then the second thing that I do is that I get up, brush my teeth, and I go for a run. So if people that know me know that I don't run because I enjoy it. I run because I'm really trying to get myself to be mentally ready for a mentally challenging day. And once that's done, it's really just having a slow morning from there. Drive to work. I'm in traffic. I live right at the top of Bears, no dear. So I'm in traffic every day. And my day starts, I want to say I have like such a welcoming sort of spirit. There's kids greeting me from the minute that I park. We've got this very beautiful culture of the kids just coming to greet you and really just asking how you are. So that's really beautiful. And the minute I step into the office, it's really just troubleshooting. It really is just troubleshooting. It's one problem from the other, parents coming through unexpected, the department coming in and they have got their own administrative sort of demands. And then I've got a bit of teaching as well, which is something that I really am truly passionate about. I always say my teaching time is so sacrosanct. Like I don't want anybody to sort of disturb me. Even my boss knows that's like a clear boundary. The minute I am with my learners, I am enchanted and the lesson just goes. So my phone is off, my watch is sort of disconnected from the entire experience. And I really am just having this intense connection with my kids. And there's a rule in my class that please don't see me as this authority figure, as a deputy principal. I really am just as human and I will make mistakes. And I really want you to be as comfortable as you want to be. And there's a lot of that. And then I'm also very involved extramurally at school. So I one of my roles as the deputy principal is to oversee sports. And I also managed our school choir, which keeps me really busy. They really are doing well. It's a really great investment. So it's a bit of both. So my day starts at 4 and then I probably knock off work a little bit after 5. And yeah.
Okay, I don't want to dwell on this, but
Okay.
I'm so interested to know. One, did you play sport? If you did, what sport did you play? Two, did you sing And if you did sing in the school choir during your times, do you know Haste the Nymph? Haste the Nymph. Because I used to sing, and that was one of our
Okay,
songs.
okay,
There was also Famban Gahle if you sang Xhosa songs.
okay,
And the third question that I have, I will pause for later. Please
okay.
respond to those three questions. Oh, the third question, maybe for
Uh-huh.
now, would be what subjects do you teach at
Okay.
school?
All right. So I'll start with the easiest question. What subjects I teach? So I teach grade 11 and 12 business studies, and then I teach life orientation to grade 10 and 12 learners. So I've got 4 classes. Yeah. And then
Okay.
did I ever play sports? Absolutely not. So I actually scanned myself into, this was an opportunity that fell on my lap. So there was a post available at the school when I had initially been there. And they said, well, the allo teacher also needs to become the sports coordinator at that time. This is before my appointment as deputy. And I
Didn't
said,
you have
listen,
arts?
I said, listen, I can't kick a ball, but I can admin. And that's exactly what the role is. Luckily, I
Okay.
don't have to train anybody. And then did I sing? Yes, I sang throughout my entire schooling life. I actually sang with Lyra in grade 11. It's about 16 years ago from now. But when she had her first recording at Carnival City, I was part of that choir. So you must actually watch it on YouTube. But she welcomes us as the Wordsworth Choir, her choir. So yeah, that's now I'm giving off that expression, or rather that experience, to my learners as well.
That's super amazing. That's super
Yeah.
amazing. And wow, kudos to you on that Lyra gig. She's one of my favorite female musicians in South Africa,
I'm
by the way.
glad. Yeah,
And I'm glad she's bounced back after everything that she's gone through.
absolutely. Such an
By the
inspiring
way,
story. Yeah.
I come from a, I would say, a certain wing of my family is your staunch choral family. They sing quite a lot. There's trophies
Yeah.
everywhere.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, when you get to the house, it's just on your face.
Okay.
Anyway, I wanted to say, actually, you know what? The best people to do administrative work are people that are not necessarily best at that particular, I would say in this case, sport
Uh-huh.
that they are overseeing. And I know this because I myself have been in the arts for the longest of times as a ballroom
Mhm.
dancer. And I
Yeah.
know that people that have been athletes are not the greatest as opposed to ones that are just,
Yeah.
doing admin stuff and have been
Mhm.
sort of like trained for it. And I know you do have admin training in
Yeah.
your capacity as deputy principal. So I know you do justice there.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
I love it for you. So I often say policies are, by the way, you are based in Gauteng, right?
Based in Gauteng, yeah.
Which part of Gauteng?
Johannesburg North, and the district that I'm at is also the Johannesburg North district, yeah.
Okay, lovely. So I often say that policies are signed in Pretoria, but felt in the most disadvantaged areas. You think your Tembisa, which I've worked in, or Umzimkhulu in KZN. But I want to hear from your experience, what are the real persistent challenges facing basic education schools today?
Sure. I think the system is the biggest challenge, right? Just the way things, it's like we have like a blanket approach or a one size fit all sort of approach to education. And education is such a delicate thing, and that's because we're dealing with so many delicate individuals. And
Yeah.
I'm not putting in teachers in the face, but I'm talking about like just how diverse our classrooms are at the moment, and the sort of backgrounds that our kids come from. And then there's dire inequality in our country, right? And we see it, when people want good education, they move their children from a non-fee paying school to a fee paying school. There's resources. Teachers are overwhelmed with admin. We speak about admin now and how it should be an easy thing for an educator to do it, but the intense amounts of admin that we get to deal with on a daily basis is sometimes quite big to sort of deal with. And then it's that engagement that we have with the kids. So yes, I mean the department, everything government led is very much policy driven, right? And it's
Yeah.
up to us as individuals, right, as part of the system to sort of make sure that those systems are implemented well, those policies are implemented well. So yes, the government creates all these systems, or they create the system and the policies, and we're the ones that sort of need to drive it. Yes, it is confusing at times because you almost feel like you're juggling quite a lot. But I think there isn't much thought being put into it, or rather, there isn't much support that is given to educators to allow them that free space to sort of implement that policy in the way that it needs to be implemented. I'll give you an example about the CAPS policy. That's the curriculum that we're all doing. At a government school, we are inundated with it's content heavy. You're trying to sort of make sure that the kids acquire the right skills and the right outcomes, for whatever grade that they're in. But also, if I have to sort of teach that much and have to deal with the interaction and the engagement that I need to deal with, then I'm automatically thrown over. But then I'm tied to this policy that I need to follow to sort of meet those deadlines and to make sure that I sort of meet my targets at the same time. Whereas on another spectrum, like private schools, they also go through this CAPS curriculum, but theirs isn't so much policy driven. It's more about creating that experience for their children. So yeah, there's a lot of examples, but I really do want to say that, yeah, the system is quite unfair on educators. There's quite a lot that is expected from us.
Interesting you'd bring CASP into the conversation, because my next question was actually going to be around the many laws that are imposed on teachers, and I will intentionally use the term imposed because I don't think there's any consultations that are made with teachers. Especially, we saw this during the times of CASP. We were told that there were consultations with various stakeholders, but we never saw teachers that are working on the ground level there. That's a mere fact, number one. And number two, we saw this during the Bella Act as well. Maybe there was a bit of flexibility there. And being from a family of teachers, I often hear my aunt and my mom complaining about what's happening in the education sector today. And so I want to know how you think these are either working for the good of the education sector, basic education in particular, or against the sector. What would be your thoughts on that?
Sure. I'm two ways about it, and I'll tell you one thing. You mentioned earlier that educators aren't necessarily consulted, and I want to say, like, when anything before a law is actually put in place, it's gazetted, and it's open for commentary from everybody. And
yeah, but then does it get? Sorry, I'm going to cut you here.
Yeah.
Does it get to the school level? Did your educators actually get anything that speaks to the Bella Act?
So this is where I'm not going to be the educator's favorite person.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So now I'm speaking from a responsible citizen, right?
Yeah.
We know these things are published and they're open for commentary. I mean, I know one of the amendments in the law in the Bella Act, the commentary closed, I think, about 2 Fridays ago. And as an individual, because I'm impacted by this thing that needs to be implemented, I commented, I shared my comments. And again, we need to mobilize ourselves and sort of get ourselves educated around how we can have a greater influence into all of this. I think we sometimes don't practice our democratic sort of privilege. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to ask, how did you get to hear about this? Because I'm in the education sector, but in higher education, I would have loved to chip in my thoughts on the Bella Act. But because there is nothing that was flagged on my face, I mean, you can't be sitting on your couch and thinking, oh, there is something that is out that I have to respond to now. How did you get to hear about this? I'm sure if I were to bring my aunt into this conversation, or my mom, they'll tell you they don't know of such a thing. How did it reach you? And carry on, please.
So it was certainly not a gazette that came from the department's email. I read about it in the newspaper. I also heard about it because I follow current affairs on TikTok. I'm not dancing on TikTok, but yeah, I sort of keep abreast with those kind of things because those are things that impact me, and they impact how I will do my job in the future. So it was important for educators to be a part of that. It's so difficult to sort of get the general public to make commentary around what happens in education. And teachers sometimes, and I'm speaking of myself, it's so quick, or rather so easy for us to sort of have that discussion and raise our frustration within the sector or in the staff room once the law has sort of been implemented. But there's so much power and influence that we've got on how this is sort of, sort of brought in about us, I mean, one thing is, a big thing now is with the Bella Act, a lot of the teachers are like, oh, we don't know whether we should allow the kids to the bathroom or not, because, not allowing them is corporal punishment, and there's all of that is sort of, brought into place. And I'm like, well, why didn't we actually comment and actually really break down what corporal punishment and what it actually looks like? And what are the suggestions around that? And how can we be creative with this new law or policy that's been brought up? Yeah.
But why would they not allow kids in toilets? I don't understand.
Because it's a big vaping hub. It's a big, yeah, a whole lot of
Oh, during
mischievous things can
school
happen in the
hours.
bathroom. Yeah, yeah. And it's also it's created a space where a child is bored in my classroom. Then, I just quickly want to go to the bathroom so I can just,
I
um,
mean, isn't the most appropriate thing to just have security checking every now and again
with
within the
what
bathrooms?
resources? With what resources?
I mean, every school has a security guard, isn't it?
Not every school has a security guard. And not every school
You are
has.
kidding me.
Yeah, I mean, I teach at a school where we've got cameras, so they're right outside the boys' bathroom. But also, just having to have somebody monitoring that all the time is a bit difficult. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Why are those cameras in the boys' bathrooms towards the
No,
boys'
they're facing towards the
lavatories?
bathroom, so they're not
What?
inside the bathroom.
Yeah, but why not the ladies?
Oh no, boys and girls bathroom. I guess my
Okay.
focus is
Ooh.
male because I'm a male. Yeah.
Okay, I see. I see.
Mm.
I guess you've given an impression that your boy learners are more problematic than your girl learners.
Naturally.
Naturally, I'm gonna give you that. I want to marry this to COVID times, and I'm hoping that you were already a teacher by that time.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I want to know how you would marry the current laws that we've been seeing in basic education with learner discipline.
Mhm.
Are you seeing any new behavioral trends between now, after they've been sort of like spoken of, and before that? And I think many of them came during and after COVID-19.
Mm. I think there's generally like a big disinvestment of learners in their own education, like
Mm-hmm.
in comparison to before COVID. I think kids were more excited about being at school, because there was never the other of doing it online or doing it, sort of in rotations. And I think there's also a huge disinvestment of parents in their children's schooling. I think a lot of parents could see that, I tried to teach my child during COVID. I really did. But yeah, I needed the teacher. And that's sort of, um, I guess the mandate is just given back to the teachers. And again, I
Yeah.
want to say it's so difficult to teach children who are not interested, number one, in what is happening and what is being taught. But also, if you don't get the support of the parents, it is also quite difficult. And I mean, I'm saying this as a teacher who's at an ex-Model C school where the parents are generally quite interested. But I've seen a decline in that. Now you can imagine a school where the parents have just never been involved, and how that sort of played out. And it's posed really big challenges in terms of behavior because of that. And there's a
Mm.
huge rights culture at the moment. Just as much as everybody is feeling quite empowered about their rights, but the kids are very quick to sort of call you out as an educator as well. Rights with no responsibilities, and it
Mm.
doesn't matter how much you hold the children accountable. It sort of is thrown back to you, and they really are just
Mm.
trying to find a way to sort of find a loophole so that they can really see you as the perpetrator in a sense. So it is
Yeah.
quite challenging as an educator at the moment, but I mean, again, I guess just being creative and being innovative.
Yeah, you speak of these rights, and I remember, God, I will never forget the day I was in grade 6, and this girl, this was just after this thing of corporal punishment was passed. I think it
Mm,
was around 2005. That's when I did my grade 6, and Mrs. Zwane, who was our LO teacher, uh, was punishing us.
mm,
Friend is so with an orange pipe. I'm not sure if you know
mm.
those
Yeah, yeah,
pipes.
yeah, yeah.
I'm
The
not sure whether
plastic
it's
one.
a
Yeah, yeah.
water pipe or what.
Hammer pipe.
Those
Yeah, yeah,
plastic
yeah.
ones. And West Railuguti, we haven't done our homework. There were a couple of us that had not done that. And when she got to this girl, she was like, "You will not hit me. You are not going to touch me. I know my rights. That's not going to happen." And I remember her, the teacher, Mrs. One in this case, walking out of class, just walking around school because she needed to think about what had just happened. And we were so uncomfortable as learners in class, the other learners. And I want to know, what does these gazillion rights mean for you as teachers, and especially you as somebody who is in the higher seat, a higher pedestal within your own school as a deputy?
Yeah. First and foremost, rights are there to protect people. I'm totally against corporal punishment.
I
If
could
anyone
counter
wants to
argue
know that.
that.
Um, and we can have the arguments after. But I think there are many ways in which you can get children to do their work. So if I was Mrs. Wane in this case, I would really try and understand what skill this child is basically lacking. It could be time management, and that's what we should be reinforcing. Because the child could have not done their homework because they're they can't manage their time. Yeah, maybe somebody could say maybe they're apathetic, they don't care about their schooling. How do you get a child, how do you win the child to sort of become interested in the subject that you're teaching? And that is what I'm saying is like, as educators, we need to sort of immerse ourselves in really what we got ourselves into. And that is you're dealing with humans, and dealing with humans requires you to really study their behaviors, study their trends, understand what it is that they're doing. We've got the new pandemic now. The kids have got like this new aesthetic with these baggy pants that they're wearing. It's this nonchalant thing. And the kids aren't excited about achieving because it's not cool to achieve, and be,
Yeah.
rewarded in front of your peers. And you sort of need to work around and innovate around that. You know what I mean?
Sorry, I'm not sure if you watch Netflix, but
Yeah.
I was catching up on season 2 of Wednesday just yesterday,
Uh-huh.
and they were putting her on the pedestal, really applauding her, the entire school, the principal
Yeah.
and whatnot. And she literally just took a candlelight and burnt that portrait of her that
Sure.
was
Yeah.
displayed, and she was like, "Don't put me on a pedestal."
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
it's the most revolting thing you could ever do.
Yeah.
So
So you see, we've got this generation that is not doing things the way we wanted them to be done. And here we are
what?
as educators. And that's what I'm saying is if you're not going to try and understand the people that you have in front of you, then you're constantly going to implement and do things the way that they were done before. The kids right now don't like to be celebrated or be put on a pedestal because they want a greater sense of belonging for everybody. Why am I isolated out? Whether I'm achieving or not, like why am I pulled
Damn.
out?
Oh, I love that. I love that. Even when Wednesday said it, because it was something along those lines,
Yeah.
she was like, "We speak about inclusivity all the time. Then why do we have to put
Yes.
somebody else on the pedestal?" Yeah, I don't
Absolutely.
want to be praised as an
Yeah.
individual. I'm doing
Uh-huh.
what I have to do. I live for doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that sends a very strong statement, because even with the people that enforce these policies that we speak of,
Mm.
uh, they're doing their job, right?
Mm.
But what we see now is after each and every seating and whatnot, and when they report, they deserve an applause,
Mm.
and that's where I would say the problem starts, and it
Yeah.
escalates down to wherever. But
Look, I wanted to give you another example. There's such a huge focus on matric results, right? Like
yeah.
we are annihilated about those matric results, right? But my thing is like it's about the greater experience of school. Like let's really care about that. Yeah.
Mm. I really love where uh, this is going, because nobody really ever talks about this. And I think it's one thing that needs a serious conversation, especially as it relates to matric results, the
Mm.
example you just gave now.
Yeah.
I wonder, I really wonder that if there were to be a survey that is distributed to parents or learners themselves to ask if they wanted their names to be published, Kwisolezwe or Ilanga or Daily
Mm.
Maverick and whatever newspaper out there, if they would say, yes, we are comfortable with this happening, or if they would say, no, we are not. I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's all good and well if you pass generally, But think about those that already know that they are facing challenges in their learning. I don't think such students, such learners would say we are comfortable with actually being published in newspapers. And so that's where the element of inclusivity comes in. So, how do we then make sure that we include these guys in our what would it be in our decision making, but in whatever it is that we come with, we have to consider both parties. And I think the most viable solution in this case would be, let's give them results as we do with all other grades without having to publish them publicly, because there is that one neighbor who is a problem for starters that we never speak about.
Yeah.
There is that family member who is going to rejoice when this kid doesn't do well. But also, we live in Black communities, maybe a conversation we don't want to step into now. We live in Black communities where we know that there is a concept of ubutagati, and there's a likelihood that when my kid gets 7 distinctions, Umasbanbani is going to perform some voodoo magic on my kid, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we recently saw this, and it was a buzz on social media. I think a kid excelled and got distinctions in all subjects. The next week they died, and everybody was just saying neighbor, neighbor, neighbor. Right. So I think these things we don't particularly talk about. And yeah, I think that's why it's important that we do the consultations, especially when you're in the policymaking spaces, so that we don't we don't become problem makers. We don't catalyze problems in communities. I know it's all good and well when these are published. I never miss metric results announcements, by the way.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it so much. But at the same time, beyond that, I think a lot of damage can be done. Whether learners pass well with flying colors or when they fail. I think that needs to be looked at. But I want to talk about the Basic Education Law Amendment Act bill, the Bella Act.
Yeah.
So, from a leadership point of view, what is your reaction to this legislation? And maybe before you respond to that, I would like you to just give a layman an idea of what this bill really speaks about.
Yeah. Okay. So, before Bella, there was, schools have a governing body, which is these are elected parents. They basically had autonomy on, the type of person that they admit into their school. So, I mean, if I'm in an X Model C or rather an affluent area, I get to dictate what my admission policy is going to be like, right? So it will be based on language. It will be based on, the radius of where the children live. I basically provide guidelines on the type of person that I want at my school, even to an extent of how much their parents earn. That automatically excludes quite a lot of children, So now with the Bella, now the schools don't have that autonomy. Well, they can still develop their policy around the guidelines of, being inclusive and all that stuff, but it must be approved by their district or head office, right? And the same with the language policy. They say that schools they can develop their own language policy, but now it needs to be sort of favored or signed off by head office, whereas before they could just really go with it. So if you look at a school, I'm just gonna say Rand Park World School. There's no school like that, right? They are an Afrikaans school. In the Rand Park area, there's a lot of Zulu Xhosa people that are moving into the area. Yes, it was predominantly Afrikaans or English, and now there's a lot more of those of Xhosa Indian, so it becomes more diverse, right? But having a school like that has the language policy of our teaching, our language of teaching and learning is Afrikaans, and our first additional language is English, no longer caters to the demographic of the people that live in that particular area. And again, those are ways to sort of exclude people in the same sense, because why am I now going to a school that's like even further from where I stay? So yeah, they've taken away the autonomy of school governing bodies because they could curate how their schools demographics look like, but also further exacerbating the inequality, that is currently taking place in South African education altogether.
Mm.
So for me, again, I'm gonna play devil's advocate. I don't think that there's anything wrong with the act. In terms of the admissions and the language policy, and even the idea of corporal punishment or what is not corporal punishment, I think it really speaks and it enshrines the values that are sort of perpetuates about democracy. And I think that this is just a way forward for our country. My only fear is that I hope that it's not just another law,
Yeah.
and that it's actually, like that when I submit the language policy to the department, that they actually read it through and they give like proper inputs and feedback, and that it's actually implemented quite well. What I certainly don't want is still for Rand Park World School to still only take in a certain demographic of people and excluding other learners who come from the same community, excluding them from or affording them that same opportunity of learning. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So basically, what is being done here is to shift power from SGBs, as we used to call them in my times, to
Yeah.
the district governance
Yeah.
or provincial government.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because what happened is that X Model C schools essentially became private schools, but just overruled by the state because they sort of decided on all of that. Yeah.
Okay. Are there CASP training sessions taking place in the country?
Sure. I've been teaching for 10 years. I think I think I was only CAPS trained at varsity when I did my PGCE.
Oh,
Yeah, I think I was only CAPS trained when I did my PGCE. Everything else I learned on sort of on the journey. Yeah, it was more peer
it,
learning. I think yes, I've learned more on the assessment of the CAPS curriculum in terms of government, and how we implement it. But I don't want to say that I've went for content training on how to sort of deliver this. I know that maybe my focus is not necessarily on that, but I do know that like there's quite a large number of like trainings that do take place. However, they also do take place during teaching time, which also then makes it sort of
so that seems to be a problem and a great outcry among school teachers to say, everything about CASP aligns with assessments. There's nothing beyond assessments. And in those sessions on assessments being held by your district leaders and provincial leaders, um, there is not much that is dwelt on in terms of content. If there is something that is touched on based on content, it would be a thing of you have so much to deal with this particular subject line or chapter
topic.
or
Yeah.
session or topic, and then you have to move quickly and whatnot and whatnot. And I wonder if that's a right way to approach education. It's such a pity that you and I have restricted time, because I would have loved us to talk about these things in detail and
Yeah.
unpack each one of them. But is that how we are supposed to approach education? I mean, when I was a school learner, primary and high school alike, I went to 3 phases of schools: primary, junior secondary, and senior secondary. And
Yeah.
we would spend days and days and days mastering content. It wasn't a thing of, okay, so in 2 days' time, you need to be done with algebra. In 3 days' time after that, you need to be done with calculus and and whatnot.
Yeah.
So is that how we are supposed to approach this education gig, really? Or we are just busy with tick box exercises? I understand
Yeah.
now that you guys are even instructed not to fail a kid twice within the same phase. So if
Yeah.
a child is in the foundation phase, which would be grade R to grade 3, I think, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah.
they have to, if they
They can
fail,
fail
it
once.
must it
Yeah.
must be once. They can't repeat grade 1 and then repeat grade 2 or repeat grade 3. They need to pass the other grades.
Yeah.
So is that really a just education system, or we are abusing our justice system?
Yeah. So, I think the minute you want to put a timeline on learning, that's when you
Yeah.
don't consider how neurologically diverse the learners are,
Yes. Yes.
because we all learn differently. And I mean, if you remember with the outcome-based education, like what you said, I mean, you didn't move on until you mastered it, right? Whereas now it's
mhm.
chapter 1 must be covered in 2 weeks. and that's it. Like whether you're moving
Yeah.
or not, and then there's going to be a formative assessment right at the end to sort of see whether we just gauge whether people get it or not, and whether people don't get it, we still move on, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's so bad that they've brought in annual teaching plans even to grades as young as grade R.
Mm.
And again, grade R, we all come from different backgrounds. The language that we've been taught is already a language that I'm not doing at school.
Yeah.
Um, and that's why we have such a low literacy, sort of rates or reading for meaning in grade 4, is because it's the time frame is sort of unrealistic. We're not trying to master it. We're trying to say we've done it.
Mm.
And it's really creating like big problems for schools and for teachers particularly. And I really don't think that you can put a time frame to how somebody learns something. It would take you a much quicker time. It could take me a much longer time. And I think the
Yeah.
focus so much on the content heavy stuff is really what is breaking us. And
Yeah.
again, I want to say this is where private schooling or the IEP is even better, because I mean, I was looking now, my grade 12s, I had to teach them 16 chapters before they could write their prelim for business studies, which they're writing
Yeah.
this coming week. I remember when I was in IB and I was teaching business studies, I remember just teaching 8 topics. So it wasn't content heavy.
Wow.
So what am I
Yeah.
able to do then as an IB teacher is that if I'm teaching about marketing, I'm able to take my kids to a particular production firm, take them through how a product is made, give them that actual lived experience. Whereas as an educator at a government school, I'm sitting at a point where I need to sort of make this reality out of my own words. Number one, I mean,
Yeah.
a projector, so I can't even show you a YouTube video. So I don't get to have those excursions or opportunities to sort of take my kids out and really show them that. And that's what learning is. If you really want to, cater for all the different ways in which people take in information, that you need to consider the visual learners. You need to consider the
Yeah.
aesthetic learners who actually need to go to the museum to actually learn about apartheid or whatever the situation is. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's important for us to have uh, learning psychologists or educational psychologists in
Mm,
schools.
mm,
And the moment we get that right, I think we will not have such instances where we get policymakers saying, we will need to cover this certain subject within such a period,
yeah.
because learning contexts differ for
Mm,
each individual student.
yeah.
But I want to talk about uh, you now as a
Mm,
leader.
yeah.
I want to shift to something that many school leaders battle with, and I think you guys battle with this quietly. Community accountability and stakeholder pressure. How do you engage parents meaningfully without falling into the trap of only calling them when there is trouble? How do you get them
Sure.
involved?
Sure. Okay. I'll tell you, I want to answer this as honestly as possible, right? Because I think that's the whole point of this conversation, right? But I'll also tell you of a strategy of how we worked. I think it's so difficult with the administrative chores and everything else that we sort of deal with. Like I said, my troubleshooting starts from the minute I walk in. It's so sort of difficult to focus on that element. And we sometimes do forget about that element, is getting the parents involved. And like I said,
Mm,
it's a disinvestment of parents in their children's education. I particularly started a parents association, so our school never used to have one, and that's sort of how I get parents in, sort of
mm,
involved. I mean, you even see it in the decline in the amount of parents that even come to SGB elections or even AGMs. There's a huge decline there, but you sort of need to worm people in. I mean, I don't know if I'll be in trouble for saying this, but like, we even have to run a raffle on you winning a holiday, in order for you
wow.
to sort of get parents to come to the AGM. But do you see how creative we sort of need to be? It doesn't matter what sort of psychology you use to get the parents to sort of care about their education, of their children's education, but it's simply difficult to sort of get parents there. And it almost feels like a one-man show. And that's
Yeah.
why teachers, I think, are so exhausted. And again, we don't have that sense of community as a country anymore. We used to live around the same area as our teachers. You could bump into your teacher at a mall. You could, there was that greater sense. So there were more people that were accountable to one child's growth than there is now. And at
Yeah,
the
yeah.
moment, it's the demon, which is all the societal ills and what is happening in our country and our world. And then there's this one dedicated teacher who, number one, does it because they're getting paid, but number two, because they really are just truly passionate about what they're doing. Um, and then that's just that. It's them against the world. And that becomes a big challenge. So I've been creative around it, and I've created what we call a parents association. A lot of the schools had it, and I consulted and I said, let the parents come in. Not, a lot of people, a lot of parents are apprehensive about joining an SGB because that's governance, that's control, that's all of that stuff. There's a whole lot of chores that come with that. But now we actually get parents in a parents association. We're like, hey, we're having a careers day or career day. We need a lawyer and an artisan at this or that, and they help us to mobilize those people because they're obviously well connected or networked, or have a good network, and they help us to get those people without having to pay for it. So it's instances like that, but it works well.
I love that. Sibu, this is part one of our conversation, by the way, because I want to have an in-depth conversation with you. You're just laying a foundation right now. And I want to bring in somebody who is in the policy space when we have this conversation in future, sooner than later, actually. And as we're about to close, I want to talk about the SGPs that you've just brought back to the conversation. And I want to know, we spoke about them and the district and provincial leaders just now. And I want to know, would you say that there's anything significant that they're doing that our district leaders and provincial leaders cannot do in schools? And tied to that, would you say that we've equipped them very well in driving? I think theirs really is to drive transformation in schools, but have we equipped them well enough, or as government does that perfectly? Or are we just giving them ceremonial power?
Sure, that is such a brilliant question. I actually love that a lot. So there certainly is significance of a school governing body. I mean, one of the 9 focal areas of a school is community and governance, and you need that. How else do you mobilize the people of your community without, bringing in the parents or the school governing body? And again, you give them a sense of building and making a school and creating it for the people around that community. You must remember, and we're not looking at a context of, a school in Johannesburg North, but a child uhlala Soweto. It's normally a child that lives in Soweto must go to a school in Soweto if the school is sort of run well. That's the whole idea behind all of it. But now people are moving their children to schools where the governing body is doing a much greater job. Does the government do a great job in training them? I'm part of the SGB. I think there's one meeting that we all have after being elected on school governance. But there is the school governing body association or foundation that does assist parents. People just need to reach out to them. I mean, we've dealt with them on many instances, whether it's cases of wanting to suspend or expel learners, or having to implement finance policies within a school and having to deal with them. They are the people that help us break down the policy and to understand it a lot better. And I think a lot of people don't know that there's actually that resource that you can sort of match on. But yeah, I think, governing bodies can make or break schools. I went to a school, I matriculated at a school, always produce 100%. Since I've known, and that's why my parents put me there. I went and taught at that school. I can tell you now that school is sitting on a 78% pass rate, matric pass rates. It's on the newspaper.
Jesus Christmas.
Yeah, and I can tell you that the biggest fall for that was the way in which the school was controlled and how it was managed. So again, there are resources, we're just not using them well, and we're just going in with a different agenda, and that's what's killing the system.
And I can argue that our local players serving in school governing bodies can also come with their own politics. One of the greatest mistakes that we make is to think that a politician comes from a district office or a provincial office, but we can find the worst political player within our own space.
Absolutely, yeah.
Anyway, that was Mr. Masumbuga. Oh God, I'm reminded of Miss Masumbuga. Sorry. That was Mr. Masumbuga shining lights on everything education, basic education. And this was, I must emphasize, just the foundation. We are going to have Mr. Masumbuga back together with somebody in the basic education sector, just unpacking these issues at length, probably for a longer session this time around, Mr. Masumbuga. Yes.
Yeah, keen.
Yeah. But with that said, I am Dr. Q, that is Kunisani Kwabe, and this has been PTH. Thank you for tuning in.
This is Beyond the Headlines, the learning edition with Dr. Q.